Welcome back to Talk of the Town. You may have heard in the news recently about the recent canine influenza outbreak, and here to talk about that a little bit more is my next guest, Dr. Ken Lambrecht from the Towne Veterinary Center. Ken, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Justin.
So tell us a little bit about canine influenza and how it's transmitted.
Canine influenza is a relatively new, this outbreak really started in Chicago. Important to note that there's just been one case in Madison. It looks like a lot like kennel cough, where there's a cough, some nasal drainage, something like that. It's not always similar to human flu. So dog kennel cough it can be a serious disease. It can be a very minor disease, but the influenza is a very serious form of a canine cough complex.
So if you notice in your dog that they seem to have kennel cough, if they have had kennel cough before, it's important to get them checked out because it could be something not kennel cough.
Very best advice I can give to anybody listening to the show is to call their veterinarian, ask their veterinarian, if it's necessary. Virtually any respiratory signs could be. It's also important that we don't panic with this. Again, there's been one case, but in Chicago, there was 1,000 dogs that were sickened and 5 dogs died related to the disease.
Wow. And can you talk to us about some of the other symptoms? I mean, you mentioned the cough. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the other symptoms?
Thank you. The fever is pretty significant, and we do think that these dogs are run down maybe with something else, but there are some perfectly healthy dogs that have succumbed too, so keeping their general health up is something that a dog owner can do. The interesting thing about this that human influenza is very, very common. Dog influenza is not. Previous to this, it was only on dog tracks. It really wasn't at dog parks, in daycares, in kennels, and in veterinary clinics. Now, this virus they've isolated is not the same one that we have a vaccine for. So they've recently identified it as a new one, probably coming in from Asia. So that was just released just two days ago. So that means we don't know how protective the vaccine is. It's a good idea to get the vaccine, but we can't say that it's 90% protective the way that it would be for that strain, that old strain. That old strain is still out there, so all the experts are recommending vaccination at this point.
Absolutely. And I'm just curious, what do you think has brought this to Madison all of a sudden?
That's a really good, we have a list of questions we ask every client, and one of them is, have you been to Chicago recently? So spring break was just in the last 2 weeks. A lot of people have family and relatives in Chicago, so I think that may cause a spike of cases. But I think the education process, if we all know not to be careful where our dogs hang out, who they hang out with, we vaccinate, and we just have this real high awareness of anything that looks like a respiratory disease. We get them up to date on their kennel cough vaccine, which is a Bordetella and a parainfluenza, another virus. We can keep their protection up to a pretty high level. And then just common sense and staying in touch with their veterinarian.
Yes, and you mentioned, you've talked about vaccination, and you've talked about being aware of who your dog hangs out with.
Yes.
What are some other things that we can do to protect our dogs from this and other diseases?
I think just frequent visits to the veterinarian, making sure they're protected against all diseases, because if a dog is fighting one thing and they get hit with something like the flu, they're certainly going to get sicker. The other thing I didn't want to forget to mention is this new strain of virus can make cats sick. And that's very different from the last. So for all those cat lovers out there, this is a big deal. And some people, I just had a client this morning said, well, I've got a cat at home. And I said, well, this is not a high-risk disease, but if your dog gets this, then your cat is at risk, and there's no vaccine for cats.
And that was going to be my other question. So you mentioned that this is risky to other pets, such as cats. What about humans?
No transmission to humans. And that's a good thing. So people do not need to worry about that.
Yeah, so we don't need to worry about our own safety or anything.
Yes.
That's good.
Yes.
Well, we just have a few seconds left. Can you tell us, at this point, is it safe for us to take our dogs to dog parks and kennels or to a grooming place or anything like that?
It's probably the toughest question we can ask. I would say use good sense, talk to your veterinarian, get the vaccine. I don't think we need to shut our doors and not take our dogs anywhere, but we do need to be careful about where we take them and who we expose them to.
Absolutely. Always got to take precautions, though.
Indeed.
So, Dr. Ken Lambrecht, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Justin. My pleasure.
Dr. Ken Lambrecht is from Towne Veterinary Center. It's not clinic, it's center. Towne
Yes.
Veterinary Center, and he just gave some great information on the canine influenza. We'll be right back with more Talk of the Town. Stay right here.